Hi, everyone, and welcome to the recap episode for this episode of the Mind Shift. It's a podcast where we explore creating a life beyond limits. I had the privilege this last time to sit with Andrew Hall, who's just done some amazing things and turned adversity into an amazing life and an amazing contribution in life. So that was a great privilege to sit down with him. We're going to do a little bit of a recap. My goal for this podcast is exactly that, to share some tools, some insights, and some experiences of not just me, but others, of how to break through limits and create a life beyond limits. And with Andrew, we had quite a lot of them. There was a lot of gems in that podcast episode. It was difficult to choose which one we're going to explore deeper. And that's what the recap is about, is to go deeper in it. For those of you that are like, hey, I want to break through my limits. I want to create my life beyond limits. This podcast is specifically designed to say what are some tools, some different things that you can apply to be able to do that and get some great results for yourself. So the recap is about delving a bit deeper into some aspect of what happened on the podcast or what the guest shared. And in this case, again, there were so many gems from Andrew, but I chose one that is really something that I think can make a big difference to people, particularly in leadership roles. And just something that, either we don't really know it or talk about it, or it's not in practice. Sometimes it's a bit of a concept, but Andrew really goes deep into the practice of being the leader ourselves. And one of the things about being a leader is, I talk a lot about it. I've worked with a lot of leaders over the years, is holding up that mirror. And as a leader, looking at ourselves first before we look out there at what everyone else is doing and what we need to potentially manage. So I'm going to play a snippet from Andrew. It's about a 4-minute snippet. And afterwards, going to come back and deconstruct it a bit, unpack it so that we can get the real gold of how you can apply this to your life and your leadership to be able to get transformational results in whatever capacity that you're leading, be it a business leadership or a family leadership or whatever leadership capacity that you're in. So we'll have a listen to Andrew here and a watch of Andrew, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
I mean, the one of the key things that you taught me was to really look at a situation and say, is your perception of the situation true? Like you perceive that person to be hopeless or slack or making it up as they go along or whatever it may be. To be honest, in IT, there's a certain amount of that goes on. People pretending they know when they don't, or what have you. I would be judging people thinking you don't know what you're talking about, or you're mucking me around, or you're hiding something, and that was my judgment. And as soon as I went there, I stopped listening to them. I stopped wanting to work with them. I stopped trusting that they would do what they were supposed to do. And in a large scale project, you can't operate that way. You need, and that was my perception of it, and understanding what's the truth. Is this true? Look, it may be true. It's not relevant to me if it's true or not. It's how I perceive it. So really delving into, is this true? Is this true? And then if you say, well, my perception of it is not necessarily the truth. So if I accept that that's not necessarily true, if I turn that around and have it present for me in a way that works for me, in other words, to put in place systems to ensure that what I want happens, or that what I think is important gets done, or that these people are not in my way or in the way of the project, then I begin to make progress. The best example of that was there was the manager. It wasn't my manager, but they were senior to me, who would be running a meeting. It was a meeting with about 20 people. It was held every week at the same time, and people were zooming in from all over the South Island for this particular sort of coordination meeting. And I was in the same room as this guy, rather than others were on the Zoom call. And I'd sit next to him, and during the meeting, he was on Facebook, on his phone. I sat next to him, and I could see he was on Facebook. And I used to sit there and watch him on Facebook. And it just used to do my head in. He's supposed to be chairing the meeting. And I'm sitting there watching him, and I was telling you this story and thinking, oh, yes, you'll agree with me that this guy's obviously, phoning it in. And you said, so what was your contribution to the meeting whilst you're watching him on Facebook? So not only is he not contributing to the meeting, I'm not, because I'm so busy focused on him on Facebook. And it was a real penny drop moment for I realised that if someone was sitting next to me watching me, then I'm clearly not paying attention because I'm looking at him. And they could be having the same opinion about me because I'm not contributing. I'm not doing my job. I'm not doing what I'm there for the project. And the ability to sort of realise that doesn't justify what he was doing or explain it or the truth behind it. I've got no idea what the truth about why he was on Facebook or shouldn't have been is irrelevant to me. I was there for the work. I was there for the project. And I needed to turn my attention from him and back onto the call and what we were there to do. And, I'll be honest and say that the following week I turn up, the same thing happens again. I find myself doing it again and I have to stop again, So it's not like one and done. I have to keep focusing on that and keep kind of understanding about what's really going on here, what's the truth here. And my first truth is not necessarily going to serve me. I need to look at it and really question it.
Yeah, when we are leaders, we often think that our role as a leader or in leadership is to manage people, right? To find what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong and to correct that. And Andrew just gave an opportunity here to really revolutionize or transform what leadership looks like. And through working with leaders, again, throughout a lot of years, I have seen the transformational impact of doing one thing, and that's to take the mirror and turn it around to the inside. So one of the key insights that has come to me through the course of this work of learning how can we get through limits and create a life beyond them is to realize something quite important, that when I'm judging someone for doing something, without exception, I'm doing the thing that I'm judging them for doing. And there's not a space for change in that, because if I'm doing it, I'm trying to force a change in this person. The dynamic isn't one where we actually create the change that we're trying. In fact, what we find is as we do that, we create even more resistance. We create that person getting resentful. If we try to approach them and say, hey, you're doing something wrong, we'll usually find we get greater resistance, not the change that we want to have. And something that I guess isn't known or talked about a lot is that the reason for that is mainly because we're in that space. We're actually in that space of doing the same thing, trying to get a change on the opposite side. So let me try to give an example or a couple of examples in addition to what Andrew just shared. So his example was obviously looking at this guy on Facebook and saying, hey, he's not paying attention to the meeting. You should be paying attention to the meeting. So I sort of asked Andrew, what through a series of questions, look at yourself and how you're not doing that. And that's when he saw, well, I'm actually looking at him on Facebook. I'm not contributing to the meeting. So that's where he got that. There's times where I've seen where I might believe someone is being critical to me. They're criticizing me, they're being rude. And when I really delve into, okay, that's a perception that I have now. Let me really question that and question that and question that. And then when I look at it, what I find when I look at the opposites of it is I've got no idea what's going on with that person. They may be saying something towards me that, might be negative or construed as negative, but I don't know what's happening with them. I found through the course of my journey that that's never about me. Like that's whatever, even if my name is there and what they're saying, it's not about me. It's about the state of mind that they're in. And instead of trying to understand that, I'm so consumed with defending myself. We can get that way, defending ourselves. I know I've been this way in the past, that I don't even see that this person's actually suffering with something. They're stressed, there's something going on. And if I get past what they're saying and I don't make it about me, I can actually see that there's something going on. But instead of doing that, certainly in the past, when judgment came to mind, I would just simply say, oh, they're being critical towards me, they're being mean to me, and I don't want them, in my life kind of thing, or I don't want them around, or I don't like them. But after learning upon what Andrew said, and practicing that, is that really what's going on? And always I find out, well, let me look at myself here and say, well, how am I the critical one? Well, I'm criticizing them because I don't have any understanding of where they are. So over the years of investigating and holding up the mirror to every judgment that I've got, or as many as I can, I have found that those judgments are always something based on a perception, and it's always something that I'm doing. And through a lot of years of doing the work with people that I work with, they have found the same, like Andrew. And I was really appreciative for Andrew to share that, because it gives us an opportunity to learn something that, look, we can just get stuck in it. I've worked with managers, leaders, parents that are leading families, or whatever people, organizations that people lead, and they just butt their head against a wall, continually trying to change the situation and getting more frustrated and more frustrated. And every single time we hold up the mirror and say, okay, what are you perceiving about this situation? And then look at your part and how you're creating that or doing the thing that you're judging. And once people break through that, like Andrew did, he's just saw the whole situation differently and was able to manage effectively and ask questions like, okay, well, let me put my attention to this and see what needs to be done. There can sometimes even be a conversation with the person at hand. Like Andrew said, it doesn't justify it. It just changes the way that we approach it, because we're no longer approaching it from a judgment. And all the years that I've been involved in this work and been alive consciously, I haven't found judgment to be an effective way to get the change that I'm looking to get. In fact, I find that it creates it worse. So when I resolve the judgment, look at things in a different way, resolve the perception, we can approach the situations differently, and my experience is overwhelmingly we get different results. Sometimes I find people don't even need to say anything. Their demeanor changes. It's like the person picks up on something that you've changed, and they will just start to change. Otherwise, the conversation looks a lot different. So, and they have a space to come into. So in the space of judgment, nothing changes. And, as Andrew said, if it's a big project, it's just going to stall it, which so many projects do. Or if it doesn't stall it, it certainly hinders the progress and efficiency of what could be happening, but it's also in a personal capacity as well, whatever it is that we're leading. So this is a really, really important thing. And, the key that I'm going to take out of this, and I wanted to expand on a bit in this recap episode, is the importance of holding up the mirror, of questioning what we're actually seeing and asking, how can I, what is the perception I'm actually projecting on this versus the truth that's actually happening? We've been taught that they're one and the same, what I think must be the truth. But in the work that we do, we question that enough to go, hey, that's just not, we always see it. There's never been an exception where a person has been courageous enough and willing to actually look at it and not see there's a different way to look at that. And it's a way to look at it that can create a much better outcome and much less stress. So there were, again, so many gems I could have picked out of Andrew's one, but I think this is one that I think just makes such a difference to leaders. So we picked that one out. I hope that you will take that and think about that, how if you're stuck in a position potentially as a leader, how do you look at yourself and say, how am I doing what I think the other person's doing? And, how can I look at it differently? What else could be going on here other than my first thought? And as you start to, unravel that, you'll just find that you're in a different space. You're in a creative space rather than a reactive space, which is super important. You get into a creative space, and then you can start to facilitate the change that you're really trying to make. So thank you for watching this and this episode recap, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Mind Shift.